Approachable merch, we got 2 different cuts. We got the V-neck, and that is women's cut, and we also have a unisex crew neck, this one. So both of them are available in black, and they have the full color, big logo on the back. That looks so sweet to have all those colors. And same thing with the peach. We have full color on those as well. Also in the V-neck like I'm wearing. And these are super, super soft, and I've already washed this and it didn't shrink. So also we have 2 different hats available. We have the black with the full color, or we have the gray with just the white. Both of them are snapback trucker fits with the mesh in the back, so you get a lot of breathability, and they match every outfit. We wanted to make sure that they were black and gray so you guys can wear them every single round and go support the brand. Make sure that you guys are making the disc golf course near you approachable. And hey, even not on the disc golf course, try to stay approachable in all moments. Smile and wave at everyone you see. Thank you guys so much for supporting us and for supporting this podcast. All of these items are available now, so go check them out at JomezPro.com.
You just got to get out there and hustle. It's a lot of work. It's like being a disc golfer. You guys that are competing in tournaments have to work hard and practice and fine-tune your game. I mean, tournament directors can't just wake up, roll out of bed, and go, I'm going to be an awesome tournament director. They also have to put in the work.
Right.
And that means, just being a good communicator, being a good organizer, not being afraid to ask people, to facilitate. That's what I would suggest.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Approachable. My name is Jo Henderson.
And I'm Paige Pierce. And today, I think this is a great episode to branch off of our last episode, right? We talked about course design. And now today, we're going to kind of go into how to run a successful tournament. We have 2 of the best in the business. We have Doug Bierkes, he's formerly won Tournament Director of the Year. He ran the World Championships in 2016, and he's ran multiple Dynamic Disc Opens and Glass Blown Opens, which have been national tours and pro tours. And he's ran so many tournaments that I've been a part of as well. B tiers, A tiers, all kinds of things. Dynamic Disc brought him on staff. And now he has passed the torch to Jackie Morris, who is now this year going to host the World Championships. So I'm excited because I think that this is a topic that lots of people talk about, right? Like,
Definitely.
Why do people want to be a tournament director? Like, I've heard so many times that, tournament directors are underappreciated, we lose money, stuff like that. So I'm excited to talk to them.
Really difficult too, right?
Yeah.
Paige? Like I've heard I can only imagine having to organize all those volunteers, all the players. Like there's so much that you have to do. So I can't.
So many
imagine.
steps.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to talk to these 2 who have obviously really made it work. And if they're continuing to do it and only doing more, they've obviously found a good model. So I'm excited to talk to them and kind of hear what tips they have, what exactly has gone wrong, what has gone right. And let's just get right to it. Let's bring on Jackie and Doug with Dynamic Disc. So thank you again to JomezPro, who powers this Approachable podcast. And let's get into it.
I am here with Paige Pierce, and I'm also here with Doug Bierkes and Jackie Morris. Hello, everyone. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing
Glad
well.
to be here.
So glad to have you on. Can you give us a little bit of a background of who you are, what you do, and why are you on this podcast today?
Me first?
Ladies first.
Oh, okay, great. I'm Jackie Morris, also known as Jackie Mo, very widely. I work at Dynamic Discs, currently as the events coordinator, but I have been here for 7 years almost, so I've gotten to do customer service, retail associate work, volunteer coordinating, warranty stuff, basically everything under the moon and sun here.
Amazing.
Yeah. Been in the disc golf world for just 7 years as well. Prior to working here, I knew nothing about disc golf. So, I'm really enjoying the events position so far. I'm really passionate about growing the women's side of it. That's a little about me.
I came to Dynamic Discs 6 years ago to run events, and since then I've done a lot of tournament directing stuff. I've been our HR director, and about 6 weeks ago, I was named president of Dynamic Discs. So my new role now is president of the company, which is a big challenge and lots of fun. And it's nice to have Jackie around because there's things I used to do that I just can't do anymore. So that's been pretty awesome.
That's awesome.
And then I've been in,
Congratulations.
well, yeah, I appreciate
That's
it.
awesome.
The disc golf, I had a small screen printing company in Abilene, Texas back in the mid 90s. And a guy walked in once and said, "Hey, I need 25 shirts for a disc golf tournament." And I said, "Disc golf tournament? What in the world are you talking about?" And he explained it to me. I'd never heard of the sport. I'd never seen it. And I gave him a price for the 25 shirts, and he said, "That's too much." And I said, "Well, what if I put our logo on the back of the shirt?" And he was like, "Well, what's the price now?" And I gave him the price. He said, "That's still too much." So after about 3 more price drops,
awesome.
he ended up getting the shirts for free in return for 2 bags of discs that had 5 discs in each of them and a private lesson for my wife and I to play disc golf. Little did I know that this guy was like a middle-of-the-road intermediate golfer. But anyways, we went out and played, and he was a good salesman. Those folks that are from Abilene, Texas, who played back in the 90s will probably remember a guy named Hector Velez. But he took us out, gave us a lesson. I shot, I think, 36 over par and said, "That will never happen again." And 30 years later, I'm still playing the sport. It's such an awesome sport.
Oh, I love it.
Mm-hmm. It's pretty
That's
cool.
awesome.
So, yeah, I guess, you guys are obviously here on the podcast because you are both involved. First of all, congrats on the promotion, Doug. That is amazing. And so now you have Jackie taking over your spot, right? But so you're both here because you've shown what a successful tournament directing team looks like. I think one of the most common kind of like rumors or things that's gossiped about is that if you're a tournament director, it's not really feasible. You can't really sustain, not going under in doing so. And I think teams like the Ledgestone Open, teams like the Dynamic Disc Open, pretty much every single event that has the Dynamic Disc stamp on it has shown and proven to be successful. And I just wonder, what are some of your keys? And do you think that is because you specifically have the Dynamic Disc backing in Emporia? Or do you think that if you took your model outside of Emporia, that would still be a successful model?
I think you did it a little longer than me. The Dynamic Disc Open longer.
That's a great question, and I think it can be repeated in other places, but it's going to be a little more challenging. We kind of have a perfect storm here in Emporia. We're located right dead center of the United States, which makes it easy for people to travel to. Dynamic Discs is here. We've got a town that's big enough that it has hotels and restaurants and things to do, but it's also small enough so that when a bunch of people do come to town, it's noticeable and it changes our economy. So there's a lot of things that are at play there. But and I agree with you, Paige, on that comment about a lot of TDs going, "Hey, this isn't sustainable. You can't make money doing it," et cetera, et cetera. And I think that is all about to change big time because of Spectators and the fact that, 5 years ago, if we would have even dreamed of like charging people to watch disc golf, it would have been like everyone would have been up in arms. But it's starting to prove itself these last couple of years. People want to pay to go watch disc golf, and that adds an incredible amount of revenue to the event, which means you can do more things. You can payouts better. You can create better, side events. It's just fantastic.
So you personally, that would be your suggestion, is for those TDs out there. I mean, honestly, the whole point of this podcast is to inspire others that, hey, you guys can do it too. Maybe you're not going to be Jackie Morrison hosting the World Championship, but how does a random city league director decide to run a tournament, and what piece of advice would you give them to at least break even? Doug, you're kind of suggesting spectator passes. Is that your one go-to tip, or do you have a couple more?
No, Spectators, maybe I should qualify that by saying that if you're hosting an elite series event that is going to bring in all of the top touring professionals, you can then charge people to come and watch. If you're going to do a C tier, a B tier, a small event, which everyone has to start out on. I know my first event was small. You know, Jackie worked on the Emporia Ladies Open prior to doing our bigger events, and it's, you know, you just gotta. One thing I can tell you is, if you're a tournament director, you got to ask local businesses to support you,
Yes.
and you can't be afraid of them saying no, because some will, but some will say yes, and that's important. And I think with the sport becoming more mainstream and more people aware of what it is, you just got to get out there and hustle. It's a lot of work. It's like being a disc golfer. You guys that are competing in tournaments have to work hard and practice and fine tune your game. I mean, tournament directors can't just wake up, roll out of bed, and go, I'm going to be an awesome tournament director. They also have to put in the work, and that means, you know, just being a good communicator, being a good organizer, not being afraid to ask people, you know, to facilitate. That's what I would suggest.
So you guys have ran events. I mean, you just kind of spoke about the Emporia Ladies Open. I know the Monkey Island Open, all of your events in Texas, which I know you do have help there. But so my point is that you have ran C tiers, B tiers, A tiers, national tours, pro tours, majors. What is the like expected time? Doug, you're saying you can't just wake up and be a good tournament director. So Jackie, like, what is, from a C tier to a major, it's got to be different, right? But so what can someone that is thinking about running a tournament expect in workload for those different levels of events to be successful?
Okay, so obviously every event is different, but you've got the same basis of what you're doing. You're running a disc golf event for others. You're not necessarily doing it for yourself. But when you're running something like a C or a B tier, the timeline's definitely a little bit shorter. I know Denise and I, when we run the Emporia Ladies Open, I think about, I would say 6 to 8 months out, we start our meetings. And that way we can have everything ready to go just a few months before. But we're also planners. For the Dynamic Discs Open Worlds, we start a year out.
Pretty much as soon as you
further.
finish the current year.
Yeah. I know, like, we've got to reserve those same dates. We're going to need the parks again. We're going to need the Granada Theater again, all of that. So, like, all of that happens immediately, like the week after. And then there's conversations that are always happening within a year out as well. But because you've got to submit, especially if it's a sanctioned event, you've got to sanction your A tiers, your B tiers. You've got to submit all that to the PDGA first, too. And so you're almost kind of like reserving things without really knowing if you're even going to get your event date approved quite yet. But you can't put your eggs all in one basket. So timelines are super important, in my personal opinion, because if you don't have a timeline, what are you planning? Checklists, super important as well. Obviously, if you're going to, I don't know, like you're going to run a small doubles event or something that's non-sanctioned, you could start planning a month out for something like that. I don't recommend it. You might be pulling your hair out, but yes.
That's a good start for people, though, to do something small. I mean, I tell people, if you want to be a tournament director, volunteer to run a mini, volunteer to do a tag night, do something small to start, and if you like it, then keep pushing. Jackie made a really interesting point, and I think this is super, super important. Tournaments are for the players.
Yes.
They're not for the tournament director. Nope. And I think one of the things that's really important for a successful tournament director is, you know, the spotlight's not on us. I mean, we're honored that you guys have us on this podcast and all that kind of stuff. And if you do run events well, there's a certain amount of exposure you get. But if you're doing it to put the spotlight on yourself, I think you'll fail miserably. Yeah. The spotlight needs to be on the players. It needs to be on the event. You're just facilitating it. And if you have that type of attitude, I think you set yourself up better for success.
Totally.
Definitely. So I noticed you said a lot of things about, both of you actually have said a lot of things about community involvement. And I'm wondering, kind of more so maybe to Jackie, but how do you get that community involvement from like volunteers or from, I don't know, how do you get the local community of Emporia on board and helping out with those sanctioned events?
bribery. No, I was kidding.
In some cases, that does work.
So good.
I'm just kidding. So one really important thing that I actually spoke at a class in the fall here, an event coordinating class, and I told them it takes a village. You cannot run an event by yourself. I'm one person. Doug's one person. Doug used to run everything by himself. I don't know how he did that. But it takes a village. You need the community. You need volunteers. You need sponsors. All of that is so important. But much like Doug said, it just starts with asking. Yes, the worst they could say is no, but if you're not asking for that support, you're never going to get it. Recruiting volunteers, we do give incentive. We do provide vouchers and, some goodies and things like that. Plus, we offer them a front row seat to watch the pros and things like that. So volunteer recruiting, definitely kind of giving back there. And then when it comes to sponsors, obviously they sponsor our event and we get their name out there. We build that partnership with them. We ask them in return how we can help them out. It's definitely a relationship and partnerships. And the sooner you start those, every year it becomes a little bit easier. Your partnership becomes a little bit stronger, so forth and so on. Doug
Love
might have
that.
more to say there.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
no,
that's,
you nailed it.
yeah, that's so important to have that community backing you up, because it's not like you're just going to have one event and then one and done and you're going to be finished, right? There's going to be many, many events, hopefully, if it's a successful tournament. And then that way you can continue asking those people, like you said, and have that relationship moving forward. Love that.
Yeah. And Jackie, I think you know best as the former volunteer coordinator what it takes to get volunteers and kind of coordinating with all of those people and like you joked, bribing. But in a sense that is kind of true, right? You're saying, hey, if you volunteer,
It's incentive.
this is the privilege that you will get. I'm curious how many volunteers you guys, I don't need numbers from 2020, 2019. I'm just on average, like what is the volunteer base like? Do you guys get a lot of volunteers, and how do you make sure that number is sufficient for what you will need?
Gosh, I think several years ago we had somewhere close to like 80 to 100. I know
Amazing.
Wow.
it's gotten harder actually to get volunteers, because the more people that get into it, they want to play, or do something like that, or they want to spectate. And I understand all of that completely, but volunteers are definitely getting harder and harder to recruit. But we do meet about all of that prior to see how many we need on each course or from what task, and year after year, if we need to make adjustments, we will. But you kind of aim high so that you can get enough people to fill in where you need them to be, and hopefully you get that number. If you get that number, great. But obviously we take any numbers that we need, the help that we need. It takes a village. We can't do it by ourselves.
So on the other hand, from that, you have the volunteers, but what about staff? How many people are on your tournament staff?
Wow, it depends on what year. When we were running 9 pools, we had 18 to 20 TDs that were course directors. And when I'm talking course directors, like Tournament Director of the Year, Steve O'Story is a course director for us here in Emporia. I mean, Matt Lloyd, Mr. Disc Golf, Mike Solt, Jason Wilder. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. We bring in some of the better TDs around the country to help us with our event, and I do think that makes a huge difference. I think people feel like, oh, they got like somebody that knows what they're doing. That's frustrating too, is being at a tournament. And I think another tip for tournament directors is go to tournaments and play and soak up what you see and go, I like that, I don't like that. And then do what you like, and don't do what you don't like. And that's good to have confidence in your staff, and confidence when you're a player to see that, oh, these guys know what they're doing.
Awesome. So Doug, I have a question for you. Going back, you said 6 years when you first came into DD as the events organizer. I remember playing the Rocky Mountain Women's Disc Golf Championships, which you ran. And I actually stayed at your house, and I kind of saw your process, saw how early you got out there, saw that you were coming home after dark, and just all the hard work you were putting into it. Then I hear that you're going to Emporia to work for DD and be their events. What I don't know exactly what the title is. Events organizer. Events coordinator.
Coordinator, I think, was the first title. Yeah.
So why do you think that Jeremy hired you, and in what ways do you think he was hoping? Let me rephrase that. How do you think you helped him moving forward? Like, what did you bring to the table? What ideas did you implement right when you got there?
I sometimes am amazed that I actually got offered this job because I did do, like, I ran tag matches in Denver, and I helped with some smaller events. But then back in 2011, I pitched the Mile High Disc Golf Club along with Ray Woodruff to run a women's only event, and I lived with a couple women disc golfers, and back then, 10 years ago, that sounded weird. I lived with a couple women.
You lived with
them. It'd be
them.
my wife and my daughter.
That.
Yeah, so it would be my wife and my daughter. And by the way, Paige, yes, you did stay with us, and if I remember correctly, our basement flooded when you were there, and you guys had to help get the water out of the basement.
Yep.
So exactly what I needed the weekend of that event. But no, Bobby Brown came out as a representative of Dynamic Discs to the first event we did at Purple Park, which was the third or the fourth Rocky Mountain Women's. And he videotaped it, and I remember him saying some things like, wow, this is really good. Like, you guys, like, really do a nice job with this event. And I think the word just traveled, and I mean, we were running that event, and I think one year, I think we paid more to first place than Worlds paid to first place.
I remember that.
And again, that came from a lot of asking people for money. And a lot of people said no, but a lot of people said yes. And I don't know, just organization, communication, planning ahead, thinking about what could go wrong. All of those things were things that I was doing at that event, and it started to show success. And I'm a firm believer in this, and Jackie, with her Emporia Ladies Open, is showing exactly what was going on with the Rocky Mountain Women's Disc Golf Championship. I think players vote on whether a tournament director and a tournament are good with their feet, and they show up and they sign up. And if they don't like an event, they don't. And that event just grew and grew and grew, much like the Emporia Ladies Open is growing. And it was noticed, and Jeremy had someone else that was running events for him at the time, and that wasn't really working out. And I just came in, and I don't know, I just approached it from a kind of I wanted to be as professional about it as I could, and they already had a good thing. I mean, the Glass Blown Open at that point was pretty awesome. When I look back at it, I got here in February and ran Glass Blown Open in April, and then the 2016 Pro Worlds in August. And I still look back at that and go, how did that all happen? But it did, and
it's crazy.
It's just, communication and planning, and I think that we've raised the bar for events. We're also always changing things. I think I brought a fresh perspective, and there have been times we've tried different things. We're trying something new this year, and I don't know, Paige, you probably remember when we took the FPO and split you guys from the MPO, and you guys played like Cottonwood Falls and Jones East and Peter Pan that one year, and we put all the women into one pool. Do you remember that? Mm-hmm. And tried it. Didn't work out real well, so we didn't do it the next year. But I think that's important too. You got to try new things and be innovative, and I think that's what we do here at Dynamic Discs.
Yeah, I think that's what I was going to say. You guys are super progressive, and you're willing to try things, and then when they don't work, I've seen, and even recently, I've seen Dynamic Discs as a company put out these well-written apologies, if you will, but kind of just like statements of like, hey, we're being open with you. Sometimes people mess up. We're all humans. And I think that is such a professional way to go about things, and to not just like ignore things that are happening, right? To be progressive and to be open. And, I think that going back to the Rocky Mountain Women's, that's something that I saw there was such a progressive idea of, hey, every single woman that signs up, you are going to get a caddy. That comes with your entry fee.
What?
Every woman,
That's
recreational,
so cool.
junior, pro. And so for me, showing up to that event, I think it was a
B tier that year, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, like you said, Doug, it was a payout that was better than the World Championship. So I think, I kind of already knew the answer to that question, but I just wanted you to kind of say what you thought you brought to the table. And, now passing that torch, you're now the president, like you said, and you're passing the torch over to Jackie. Jackie, what do you think you will take that you've learned from Doug, and what do you think you'll do moving forward? If you listeners don't know, to preface this question, Jackie is going to be the tournament director of the 2021 World Championships. I'm sorry, 2022 World Championships. So yeah, what do you think that you're going to take from Doug and move forward with your new position?
That's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of hard to say because like everything I've learned has been from Doug. So I'm probably going to take literally most everything with me moving forward.
So then I guess what's the best thing he's taught you that you'll never forget basically in this career of yours?
Gosh. I've been helping Doug since 2016 Worlds. That was the first year I did volunteer coordinating. So there's a lot I've learned from you. Shoot. Man.
She's already improved so many things. I mean, anytime somebody new takes over something, having a fresh perspective, I mean, there's several things you've already done that I think have raised the bar, and that's awesome.
I think Doug's really good about having like these timeline sheets of everything that like needs to get done and assigned. So I know I want to take that moving forward, like have this countdown sheet almost of everything that needs to go into starting immediately after the event is over. And
you say after the event's over?
Yeah, like as soon as the event's over, like he has the timeline, like starting like that next week. What do you start again? Like.
Wow.
So I want to kind of take that moving forward because it keeps you super organized. And then another thing is like he's very informative on like what's going on with events and things like that. So he's got like all these documents of everything that needs to be updated. So I want to kind of keep moving with that forward as well. Just to stay informative and organized. I think that's a good basis. He's taught me so much. It's really hard to pinpoint something super specific because everything that he has taught me has been valuable. I mean, there's a lot that I didn't know, especially going to the Emporia Ladies Open. He helped Denise and I out with that our first year. And it's just a continuous learning process too. Every year you learn something new. At every single event, whether it's small or large, and I think he's kind of instilled that into me too. You learn something new at every event. People are gonna love it or they're gonna hate it. Just keep trying something new and changing it from there. So that was more than one thing.
Yeah.
So
Great.
And I've also told her, and this is super important, if you think you're going to make every single person happy, do not be a tournament director. Because that's impossible.
Yeah.
But if you can keep most everybody happy, you'll be a rock star.
Right.
That's awesome. Like you're not going to shoot 1100 rated, but you can shoot a 1040 3 times and try to win. Or for the
I can do 2 rounds. I can do 2 rounds at 550 apiece, which then become 1100 when you add them
There
together.
you go.
Nice. Nice. So now you're
Pro
now
tip
you're
for
there.
those. Yep.
Perfect. So Jackie, here we are in the, late winter, almost spring. You got a couple months left. What is on the timeline to last little push before Worlds? What are you guys working on currently?
Sponsorships, lots of sponsorship emails are being pushed out. Just squared away tournament directors for April. And yeah, I had all the player pack stuff ordered before the new year. Yeah, really pushing sponsorships and then getting the caddy book squared away and then tying some loose ends up with the Disc Golf Pro Tour. Awesome. But then so just kind of like admin work, and then that month we really start working into gear on like the courses and things like that.
Getting the courses down. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's also
So
it's also kind of nice that. Oh, go ahead.
No, you got it. Keep going.
Oh, I was going to say that while running 2 events in the same year has some problems, it also has some benefits that we get to turn around, much like in 2016, where we turned around from doing what was then the Glassblown Open, turning around and doing Pro Worlds. Same thing this year, where it's a lot of the things that we'll have to do for August. We'll have just done them in April, and it'll just be real. It'll be just rinse and repeat. Which is back to when you first started talking about advice for tournament directors. That's another thing. It's like being a school teacher. You know, the first year you teach, it's so much work, and then the next year you teach, it's a little easier because you've done it before, and it gets easier and easier, and then you just start fine tuning it. Absolutely, the same case with tournament directing. You just do it over again, and you get better, and it just gets quicker and more efficient. And stick around and be patient. If you like doing it, it will get better.
Yeah, you can usually tell when a tournament director's it's their first time, and you can tell when they've done it 10 times, and it just becomes a well-oiled machine. So yeah, I gotta imagine it's a little intimidating to start off, but just gotta hang in there. But yeah, I think you had a good point too. Is just to try to go to leagues and stuff like that, run a local league, and Wednesday night minis or whatever it is, and work up from there if you find an interest in it. And from what I've gathered, even before we hit record, Doug, I saw your little sheet of notes. That's the first guest we've had with a note. So, I think that just goes to show how organized you are. And I think that, that's definitely a key. But back to Jackie for 1 second. You were talking about getting sponsorships. This is, not exactly Worlds Talk. This is more general. What do you do to get sponsorships? Like, what makes this random company interested in sponsoring a disc golf event?
Letting them know how valuable their sponsorship is to us, especially repeat sponsors. Like, they've been with us since like the beginning. Just reiterating how valuable they are. If it's a new sponsor, making them see how they can be valued. Again, it never hurts to ask. I know for the Emporia Ladies Open, Denise and we reached out to Lara Bar, and they sent us like a bunch of little samples. And
Amazing.
Yeah, and
So
they're a
cool.
women-owned business, so that was pretty cool. But we told them how important it was to us and made them see value in it. And that goes for any event. It's like, it's important to us. It's important to you too, especially for something like the Dynamic Discs Open, obviously, because we have hundreds of people come to town. And it is beneficial to the businesses here because they're going to come here and spend time in their restaurant or their business and things like that. So showing them the value and getting them to buy in. It's not just about us. It's about all of us. Just making them see that importance.
Disc golfers are very committed to people that support disc golf also.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
totally.
one of the things I tell people is that, I remember Cliff Bars way back when got involved with the PDGA like 15 years ago. And it seemed like everybody I knew that was a disc golfer was eating Cliff Bars at that point. So disc golfers take notice of sponsors, and they appreciate them, and they spend their money with them.
Yeah. I think that, if we could have like this piece of paper like Doug has right there, right, with all these notes on it, I think that, me as an completely unexperienced tournament director, I would think going to them with a sheet of paper or some Google Doc or something like that and just saying like, hey, this is how many people we have here. They're all from out of town. They're staying in hotels. They're going to come to your hotel. They're going to probably eat out 2 meals a day. We can put your logo and your address of your restaurant into this caddy book, and people are going to come there. I feel like those are the types of things that just having the tangible logo on the tournament assets is helpful. And I know that I can't remember what tournament I played, but one tournament was like, hey, save your receipts for whatever restaurant, bring them to us, and then we'll show them like, hey, this is how many people came to your restaurant in in collaboration with us, do you want to be a sponsor next year as well? So I think stuff like that is definitely helpful. So the Dynamic Disc Open in the past has been almost 2,000 players, right? So Emporia is just flooded with disc golfers. It is so, we've talked about this on lots of different podcasts and interviews and stuff, but it's so cool to see Emporia DDO week, seeing all those spectators there. Is that something we can expect at the World Championship? Does the city of Emporia plan to kind of shut down Main Street and welcome us disc golfers?
Obviously, at Worlds, there won't be the A-tier side, but with the growth that we've seen and the spectatorship is growing so much, we'll still have the Fly Mart. There'll be thousands of people just here to watch the pros, so I would expect to see that.
I predict we'll have more people in Emporia, Kansas for the World Championships at the end of August than we've ever had at a Dynamic Disc Open or a Glass One Open. I just think it's that big of an event. I think it's one of the most important events in disc golf history. We came off of an amazing World Championship last year that, a lot of eyeballs were on, and so many new people have embraced disc golf through the last couple of years, through COVID, all the different things that have happened. We honestly believe that there could be, we're already talking about like parking plans and, where can people park? And I believe a lot of people are going to want to come and see the action. In fact, we're going to meet with the PDJ and the Disc Golf Network on Friday about a kind of an ongoing campaign leading up to Pro Worlds, where it's like, how are you going to watch Pro Worlds? Are you coming to Emporia, or are you tuning in on Disc Golf Network? And really encouraging people, hey, you've got two options. We want you watching, whether it's here or whether it's on your computer screen or television screen, and it's going to be huge.
I, for one, am so excited. I am coming to Emporia. I'm coming to Worlds officially, so it's going to be my very first Worlds event that I've ever been to. So, yeah, I'm just wondering, what can I expect as a spectator? Like Paige was saying, like what kinds of things will there be? Like food trucks or anything else going on alongside of disc golf, or like vendors or anything like that?
There'll be vendors, yes, absolutely. I think, it's Doug probably knows a little bit more because like we've been planning it for a while, but I'm so focused on the Dynamic Discs Open.
Fair enough. So fair.
But yeah, gosh.
There'll be two different types of spectating experiences at both the Dynamic Disc Open and at Pro Worlds. We're playing two courses. We're playing a brand new course called the Supreme 18 at Jones Park, which is about 85% of the way complete at this point. There, spectating is going to be a little more limited just because of the nature of the course. Some courses are better for spectating than others. Mm-hmm. The Country Club, on the other hand, is being tweaked a little bit to where the entire course will be divided with, we bought 30,000 feet of posts and this rope that has these little triangle pennants on it that will divide the playing surface from the spectating surface. Mm-hmm. And spectators will be on one side of the ropes and players will be on the other side of the ropes. And our goal there is to, while the whole model of having some volunteers using a rope to kind of follow a lead card, we'll be doing that at Jones Park, where we'll have much smaller and it's going to be more expensive and kind of exclusive to watch the golf on that course. But at the Country Club, we think it's going to be way different than any other experience because spectators will be able to be in one area, players in another, very divided. I mean, the numbers of like the porta potties that we need to get is going to be like times 5 from what we normally do. If we're going to have people on the course all day watching, we need to have food. So there'll be food vendors that spectators can buy food from. When people pay to go watch a sporting event, they typically want souvenirs and things like that, and we'll be selling souvenirs on the course as well. So really trying to model it after other sporting events, and we're at that point where we've grown and we can support it and we can sustain it, and I'm really excited to see how that works at the Dynamic Disc Open first.
We'll
but it's going to be special.
Cool. And then you can take that and say, okay, what went right, what went wrong. We have a few months before Worlds to polish it up. So that's really cool opportunity you guys have. I'm personally, as a player, excited to see that. That is really cool to hear that here first. And I guess briefly, because this is just my personal curiosity, what is that spectator line? Is that going to be the out of bounds marker as well, or is that spot still safe? Okay, wow. So if we go over
No.
there, then the spectators have to move and we throw?
No. You're out of bounds.
Oh, you are out of bounds. Okay, gotcha.
Yes, but the out of bounds line will not be the spectator line. So it'll go playing surface, OB, then the spectator
Oh,
rope.
I
So
see.
it's like
To get
I
a
see.
buffer.
Gotcha.
Further back.
Yeah,
Okay.
a
Gotcha.
little buffer.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Cool. Yeah.
And
I
it'll
mean,
an example page will be hole 1 at the country club, which you've played many times.
yeah.
Typically, the sidewalk on the right is OB and the sidewalk on the left is OB. Well, now the left side of the fairway will be OB because there's going to be a gallery area along the side of that fairway. So some of the holes will be tightened up a little. Hardly any real change to any of the holes, though. Hole 10 is going to be a new hole. If you recall, hole 9, the par 5 that kind of you throw out the tunnel and then you have to go up to the right and the basket is tucked in the woods. Now for the next hole, instead of going back out into the open to throw down that hill, kind of was it Brian Earhart that aced that hole a couple years ago?
Yep.
Yeah.
We've carved out a fairway from back in the woods. So you'll leave the green of 9, go to a tee pad that's further back in the woods and throw down a straight tunnel shot to that basket. So
Awesome.
again, we don't have a lot of trees in Emporia. We're going to use as many of them as we can.
There you go.
I love that.
That's good.
I love that. That's good to hear. I like to see a little bit more versatility in the style of play. So that's really cool. Joe, I was gonna say, last episode we talked about, we were kind of referencing the OTB Open, right? And how they
Yes,
kind of
yep.
roped off little spectator areas, and they kind of had these food trucks and vendors in the specific little sections, or Idlewild did it as well, where you can only
Right,
spectate on holes 1 through 3 or 16 and 18. And I think this is just going to one up that, right? And be like, hey, you're allowed on every hole, but you have to be behind this rope. And it's going to kind of create this visual where the cameras will pick it up. Obviously, the people in person are going to feel that energy that is just, like you said, Doug, 2022 World Championships is going to be one for the books. So
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah,
I mean,
very,
if it's
very
anything like
excited.
last year just looked absolutely insane. Just like the amount of people, the atmosphere just looked like next level sporting event. Like it was just insane. So I can't imagine this to be any different than that. It would only just top it, right? So can't wait.
And after the Preserve last year, I was speaking with Kale LaVisca, who's the tournament director there, and he was saying, that he didn't really realize, because this, the year before there wasn't spectators at that event because of COVID. Now last year is one of the first events back with spectators, and they sold passes. And he said, wow, something I never considered is porta potties and bleachers, like you're just talking about, Doug. And he's like, man, I should have just bought them instead of rented them. It's not much more to just buy them outright. And I think for our general public that's listening to this or watching this, you guys probably aren't going to run a pro tour in the near future. You might not have to think about spectator ropes and stuff like that. But I think, a huge thing that can take your tournament from being, leaving people disappointed to leaving people saying like, wow, they really took the extra step, is getting enough porta potties, putting them in good spots, and really making sure that, hey, especially for smaller tournaments that have 2 rounds and they have to 2 rounds in one day, having a food truck there, maybe it's a little bit more out of pocket, but you're going to have a lot more people there that leave impressed because they don't have to leave the course and rush back. You'll probably have a lot less of a headache too, dealing with people that are late or complaining. So I think those are the things that I see that I think make a huge difference, is just enough porta potties and food on site. And it sounds like you guys have obviously figured that out. And but yeah, that's kind of just like for our listeners, you know, I think if you are looking at TDing a tournament, make sure you have porta potties. And yeah, I think that's a huge one.
Yeah, kind of going back to what Doug said earlier, is like if you want to be a tournament director, play in events. There's actually events that I played in that didn't have like any on like bathrooms on the course, and I was like, whoa, we got a whole like ladies division. What do you mean?
Yeah.
But just attending events and you're like, okay, if I'm gonna do this, this is what we need. Or okay, I didn't like that. So, yeah, just keep attending events. Porta potties are huge. Yeah.
I think spectating, Paige, at big events is going to change too dramatically. It used to be that, you know, if you go to an event and you're going to watch, you want to watch maybe the first card or the chase card or something like that. We're getting to the point where the fields are so stacked that you can literally pack a lunch, hang out on a hole, and just watch group after group after group go by and go, I've seen him, I've seen her, I know him. It's the dynamic discs open this year, and we've caught a lot of heat about, you know, we need more spots. And I would argue that, yes, we need to get as many spots as we possibly can. But think about how cool this is. The Dynamic Discs Open is full, where every MPO player is 1,000 or above, and every FPO player, 48 of them, is 900 or above. Wow. And that's getting to the point where you can sit somewhere and instead of, and don't get me wrong, following groups around a course is awesome too, but you can literally, I remember I went to the Masters in like 1992, way back when, and just we found a spot to sit and watch group after group of ball golfers go by. And it was one of the most amazing experiences I ever had. And I think we're getting there with disc golf where, you know, you might buy a seat on the 16th green and you can sit there all day and just love it. And I really see that happening sooner than later.
Oh my gosh, me too. That's exactly what and I'm a huge music fan. I go to so many shows, and you know, when you buy your ticket, the first thing you do is pick where you want to sit. And you know, it's like, and same with football games, basketball games, you pick your seat and you know what to expect when you get there. Do you want to spend this extra money to get the better view? Do you want to go sit on the island hole? Do you want to sit on, you know? And so I think that disc golf would definitely benefit from something like that. And then you can have like, you know, Bushnell sponsors hole 1, and then there's a Bushnell tent, you know, Cliff Bar sponsors hole 2, and there's a Cliff Bar tent, you know, stuff like that. I think that would bring a lot more revenue as well. Yeah, there's so many ideas that I have. I really appreciate you guys just chatting about this stuff, because I think this is totally the growth of the sport, right? When you look at the PDGA event schedule and you see that there's like, I don't even know, like upwards of 60 events a weekend now, right? And you got to think like all of these tournaments are filling it, and there's so many players. It's just like we don't have enough people running tournaments. We don't have enough courses to run enough tournaments on. And you know, that is a really exciting place to be. It really is. But yeah, I think the whole reason Joe and I really wanted to chat with you all was because there's a lot of people that have this kind of hesitation to run an event because of the horror stories out there of, you know, I put in 200 hours to run this event and nobody was grateful, and, you know, I got all this backlash and I lost money. And I think really, really what we want to know is, we want you to tell the listeners is like, obviously you've made it, right? You're hosting multiple world championships. Like, how far did you have to come to do that? I know you say it gets easier every time, but making that first step and just really starting out, do you think it's just the mindset of the individual that says, hey, you know, I know this is going to be a lot of work. I know everybody says it's hard, but I'm going to try it anyway? Or do you think that there is an exact model? I mean, I know this is a long-winded question now, but my brain's really spinning. Like, what if you all came out with like a template, like a course, like an online course of, hey, this is the model of how to run a tournament. what would your first page look like?
That's funny that you say that, because like that's one of my ideas. I'm like, we
Tell us
need more
about it.
tournament directors. The
Such
the
a good
growth of the
idea.
sport is outrageous. We don't have enough tournament directors to support as many players that want to play. Gosh, yeah. So a template, huh?
Yeah.
I would seriously come down to just the basics: bathrooms, course reservations, sanctioning events. You know, you got to take care of all your admin work, and then you've got to look at the player pack side of it. Make sure that you got a budget. Fundraising is huge, because you know, if you're running it out of your pocket, you're not out of money fast, right? And then if you're not looking to make a buck on the event, you're kind of looking to be more even. You're gonna have to do fundraising for it. Gosh, I don't know. There's so much. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's all awesome. From the actual competitive side of it, you know, you have to think. I can't tell you how many times I've been like painting a course or getting something ready, and I go, we really should paint that. No one's ever going to end up there. Famous last words. Someone will end up there, and then it's going to be like all, you know, heck's going to break loose over it. So, I mean, really, really thinking about that. I'll tell you another thing is be open to feedback. One of the things that I loved, and we're no longer a national tour event, but one of the things I used to love about the PDGA is that about a month after our event, which used to be the Glassblown Open, now has become the Dynamic Disc Open, we would get like 3 or 4 pages of feedback. And, you know, this was awesome, this was awesome. You might try this. This was awesome, this was awesome.
I've seen that now.
Yeah, and we take that, and if someone's giving you feedback, you got to listen to it. You know, and don't be afraid to make some changes. Paige, I can remember, I don't know if this was last year or the year before, it was our first Disc Golf Pro Tour event. It was the CBS Sports one. And the Disc Golf Pro Tour had a bunch of assets, and this is before we were using ground whiskers for the Circle 1 and Circle 2. And they had these white flags made for Circle 1, I think it was. And all of our OB flags were also white, and it just looked super confusing. And Paige, I think it was you. It was someone in the FPO field that was like, you know, this might be something you might look at. And we were like, yep, that you hit the nail on the head. And I think you just have to be willing to take people's advice and take people's suggestions. You can't do everything people suggest, but you know, just kind of roll with it and be flexible and understand that sometimes somebody else's idea is better than yours. I mean, Jackie's got ideas that are far better than mine. I mean, and that's okay. That makes our event better.
I would say just don't take things so personally.
Exactly
I know it's really
what I was
hard
gonna
too. Gosh, yeah. I mean, I read, the comments, man, just for anyone and everyone, because just don't take things so personally. A lot of the times, you know, when people are upset or something, it's, you know, they just want to be heard. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you're running a bad event, or like the horror stories you're talking about. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're running a bad event or anything like that. It's just everyone has a perception, everyone has an experience, and the best that you can do is hope that 80 of the 81 people had a good experience.
I'd even go with like 78 out of the 81.
Yeah.
Yes.
Love
Yeah.
it. Love it.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say too, is like, we as humans, like, we all have these like attachment issues, and we have these thoughts of like, if someone says something we did is bad, then, or not even bad, but they just say, hey, you could do this. In my opinion, this could be better. We tend to take that as like, oh, they're attacking me, not this thing that I could have done better. Like, oh, they're telling me I'm a bad person. And, you know, that is something that we all need to work on. Definitely myself as well. Like, people are just trying to help. And like, Doug, I totally remember that was me. I've told lots of tournament directors that, actually, because it's something so small that you don't think about, but definitely as players, and especially with us being self-officiated, it's hard to tell if it's OB or Circle 1, and then it just is confusing for the commentators online, stuff like that. So just those little things to think about, and I really do appreciate. And I remember you just raising your eyeballs like, oh, yeah, totally. But I think what I want to say to our listeners right now about that is, I try, whenever I notice something, I try to say it before the event starts, to give that event team some time to fix it before the event starts. And if you're someone that's listening that's on an event team, I think that is a good reason to try to get your course set up a week early, so that players can kind of get their little run-throughs, and it can be an open forum, right? Where you're like, you hear what they have to say. You can even go out there and watch people play it. Are they confused? And so I think that that's something that happens a lot out on the road traveling, is if we as pros have negative feedback, I would be even like inclined to say 99% of the time it's that the course wasn't set up early enough. So if you're a TD listening, try to get your course set up a couple days earlier than you think. And, you know, that just goes into what Jackie's saying. One of the first steps is securing that course on those dates. So just ask whatever you think the dates you need is, bump it back 1 or 2 days, and it will be a lot better received. I know it.
If you do not, they always say, what is it? If you fail to plan, or if you, what is that? You fail to plan, then you plan to fail.
If you fail to plan, yeah, that makes sense.
You plan to fail.
Yeah.
Like, if you do not plan, you are you're planning to fail.
Yeah, literally.
So that's really big.
I like that a lot.
Think about all of it.
So if you fail to plan,
Your planning is failing.
right.
You plan.
What if you plan to fail?
You plan to fail. Well, if you plan to fail, then you're
Success.
planning to fail. Ooh.
Then you will not.
Then you're
wrong.
succeeding and failing. I think.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I really, really appreciated just getting to know a little bit more of what goes on in running tournaments, in setting them up. Is there any last things you guys would want to talk about? Is where can people buy spectator passes? Anything you want to shout out? I think that part's important.
Yes.
Where can they buy tickets?
Yes. Spectator passes are available on Eventbrite this year. I know in the past we've used Disc Golf Scene. This year we are using Eventbrite. So you can just go to Eventbrite, search Dynamic Discs Open, and there are 2 different tickets available. Again, Jones has some limitations. We can only have, I think it's 250 people there. And then there's several at the Country Club. So go get a ticket.
And that's for DDO and Worlds? They're both
That's
on
for the
Eventbrite?
Dynamic Discs Open. Yes. Worlds will be on Eventbrite too. We don't have those available yet,
Okay.
but
Awesome.
they will be.
And we'll
Awesome.
make some announcements about that for sure.
All right. So make sure you all are following Dynamic Discs on social media platforms. We'll be posting about when and how you can come see the World Championships. See if James Conrad's going to make another miracle shot. Hopefully I get a chance at redeeming myself from the last year. And I am so excited to come to Emporia twice this year and see this successful TD model. And if you are a tournament director, maybe my recommendation here is to go volunteer at the Dynamic Disc Open.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Come volunteer.
Take a tip. The best thing that you can do is put yourself in the shoes of others that have succeeded, and going volunteering on the team, you get a front row seat at watching some pros, and you'll get some tips. So I think that would be my recommendation. And I think we will sign off with you guys with these tips and some excitement going into Worlds. Thank you guys so much for being here.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Appreciate it.
For a moment there, I know that I was kind of repetitive with my questions, but I started to realize that they are running the world championships, that their level of expertise isn't conducive to a lot of the people that are listening, right? So I was trying to get them back to their roots, like, hey, what was it like when you first started? It got me super stoked as someone that's playing in Worlds to think of what's coming up and all those spectator lines they're talking about and stuff like that. But I hope that you guys got some information on what to expect, you know, their little template of what a first-time TD should look for. And I mean, what did you take from that, Joe? If you were going to go run a tournament tomorrow after hearing their advice, what would you think of?
Honestly, now I know like how organized and how future oriented you have to be thinking. Like you have to start thinking a year in advance, they were saying, for Worlds, which is insane. That's crazy. I definitely would plan way, way, way far in advance. And like Jackie was saying, like getting those checklists, making sure you talk to the right people, getting that fundraiser money going, sponsorships, all of that stuff is so important. But mostly the thing that kind of, I don't know, the thing that I kind of took away from it is just to know that, like, yes, we are like, you can't run a tournament on your own. You need a village, right? You need your people, you need your leagues, you need your community to back you up on all of that. And for me, that was very insightful just to see how many people's hands actually go into running a tournament.
Mm-hmm. I think a common theme on the show, you know, I think back to our first episode with Blake Schaefer, and how he was kind of just saying, hey, just do it. If you have something in mind, just do it. And, you know, I think he actually almost said word for word something Jackie said this week was, don't be afraid to ask. You know, they might say no, but don't be afraid to ask. And, you know, I'm so glad that we circled back to that because it is so true. I mean, it is so true. And it's been a common theme that we talk about how approachable the community is, how inclusive the community is. And just last week, talking to UC and Simon, we hear about work days and how disc golf is such a cool sport because the community bands together and says, hey, let's clean up this course. Hey, let's go get our weed eaters. And, oh, hey, you have a chainsaw. You have a whatever, pole saw. Let's go clean up hole 4. It needs some work. And I think that ties into running tournaments as well because you need those work days to get the course ready as well. So I think lending a friendly hand, you know, I'll help you, you help me. Maybe you have this is one of my favorite things of disc golf is you post on Facebook, any of my disc golf friends a plumber, any of my disc golf friends an electrician, you know, and everyone's willing to help each other. So think about it like that. If you're running a tournament, reach out, say, hey guys, I need some volunteers. This is what I can offer you in return. Maybe it's a hug. Maybe it's a, you know, a spectator pass to the World Championships.
Exactly.
Who knows what it is, but just keep in mind, we can all help each other. And like Joe said, like Jackie said, it takes a village. So let's all help each other. And remember, we're all trying to grow the sport together. So thank you all for listening. If you have any comments, questions, anything else you want to ask us, if you're watching, leave a comment below. And if you're listening, make sure you email us at approachable@JomezPro.com.
Or our page. They can also find us over on Instagram at ApproachablePod. That's at ApproachablePod. Thank you guys so much for listening and tuning in. We can't wait to have you on the next episode.